Hi guys. All right, so I'm trying something new today for us. I'm going to use the camera on our laptop that you see me with at school, and instead of my phone, and maybe that will upload a little easier since it'll be laptop to YouTube instead of my phone to YouTube because it took such a long time yesterday to get those three St. Patrick's Day videos uploaded for you guys, so I was going to try something just a little bit different today. I sent out a question on Remind earlier today, class, and the question on Remind was a question that went along with one of our stories from yesterday. So, there are 16 four-leaf clovers in the Leprechaun's Gold for the readers to find. How many leaves would there be all together? And so hopefully you guys have had the chance to think about that a little bit, maybe even do some models or some figuring. And if you have, please send me a picture of it if it's all on paper, or maybe somebody can help you type that in at home. Always make sure that you have parents' permission and help if you need it. But let's look at what we have here and let's do what we always do. So I've read this to us once. This time, even though I can't hear you do it, I'm just going to trust that you guys are going to read it with me this time, okay? So let's do that all together and ready, set, read. There are 16 four-leaf clovers in the Leprechaun's Gold for the readers to find. How many leaves would there be all together? And if you need to read that again to yourself in your head, then it's a good idea to make sure that you know all of the words in the problem before we go ahead and start finding everything that we need. All right, so just like in class, boys and girls, we're going to start with our question mark, okay? What are they asking us? All right, so what they're asking us is how many leaves would there be all together? Are there any clue words in our question before we start looking for the information that we need? And hopefully some of you have already replied, even though I can't hear you. Hopefully some of you have already replied all together. So the words all together, or the word all together, is a clue word. So let's think about that clue word for a second, and then we'll go on and find the rest of our information that we need to help us solve. So all together, what would that mean? So it means, as far as what operation we would use, we are either going to need to do what? Add, or we're going to need to multiply. So we've narrowed it down to that. Okay, let's go back and let's look at the information that we need to solve this. All right, so let's see. There are 16 four-leaf clovers. I need 16, but guess what? They snuck another number in there in the form of a word, right? A number word. All right, there are 16 four-leaf clovers, and we're trying to find how many there would be all together. Now, some of you have already figured out whether you need to do this or whether you need to do this. And I'm so proud of you for figuring that out. So I will go back into making this a little bit easier for you guys to solve in a moment if you haven't already solved it. But for the rest of us that need a little more time to think about this and we want a little bit more time to model it, maybe we'd just like to check it and be sure. Let's think about what we know about clovers. All right, so first of all, I wanted to say, I had some shout outs I wanted to do. Nathaniel, I love your trap. I didn't know that leprechauns eat M&Ms. I had no idea. You have some inside leprechaun information that I was unaware of. So that might help us next year when we are trying to trap the leprechaun. So I really appreciate you sending me a picture and also your explanation. Oh, and I love how you continued the story for Jamie O'Rourke yesterday, Nathaniel. I loved that. Also, Gwen, I loved all of your comments. I'm glad you liked my accent. You know that when we go to the rug, there is just no telling who Mr. No is going to turn into when we're in our classroom and we go to the rug for story time, because sometimes the accents and the voices just come out, and I have really little to no control over that. So I'm glad you did enjoy the accents yesterday with our St. Patrick's Day stories. And then another shout out. This one's to Brianna. And I don't know if Brianna is on here or able to view these, but Brianna at recess just a couple of weeks ago brought up a 4-leaf clover to show me during recess. She's really good at finding them apparently, and she says that it runs in her family, that she has some family that are really good at finding 4-leaf clovers as well. What we normally would see would be something like this, right? The 3-leaf clover. And the clovers kind of look like they have a little heart almost, don't they? So that would be 1 leaf, 2 leaves, 3 leaves, 3-leaf clover. But our story says 4-leaf clover. So I tried to draw one of those just so that we could get an idea. So that would be 1 leaf that looks kind of like the beginning of a heart, 2 leaves, 3 leaves, 4 leaves. Okay, so hopefully that will help us as we continue to try to model, draw, and come up with what we need. All right, so it doesn't have to be a fancy drawing. I just wanted us to kind of get a little general idea. So we have 16 of something, right? Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And because I know that double 8 is 16, I know I can have a row of 8 going underneath as well. So we've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and sure enough, 16. And all of them have how many leaves? Well, for this problem, we have 4-leaf clovers. So each one of those would have 4. And there's absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever with working it out this way. It is a good way to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And it is a good way to go back and check our work if we've already finished it. And it's just a good visual for those of us that are like Miss Janelle when we are visual learners. So all of those now have 4 in them. Now I could count each one of those by 1 because we can count that high. We're 3rd graders and we can count that high. But it's going to take a little while to do that, isn't it? It's not our fastest strategy. So let's think about other strategies that we've talked about, and let's think about strategies definitely that are something that we do in the 3rd grade. And so I know a lot of us can count by 4s, or even if it's groups of 4, that brings us back up here to our operations. I could do repeated addition. Boy, that would be a lot. 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 and all the way here. And then I'd have to go all the way through here as well with 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. We could do that. But we know, we've done it so many times this year, we know that the fastest way to solve a groups of problem is by multiplying. So what they're really asking for us to find here is 16 groups of 4. That's what they really want us to find. And so our unknown is a box. Our unknown could be a C for clover. Our unknown could be any type of letter that you wanted to assign it, but box will work for us, okay? So we've used that one before and it will work for us. All right, so now here's what we could do. We just could keep counting by 4s, and we could say 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and we could keep going like that, couldn't we? Let's do that and let's see what our answer is, but then I'm going to show you another way to solve this, and I'm going to review the distributive property with you again because it's such a great way to handle some of these problems if we have 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication. All right, so we got up to 20, 4 more, 24, 4 more, 28. I can almost hear you guys even though I can't really hear you. 4 more, 32. What about 4 more? You're right, 36. 4 more, 40 times 10. You know how Miss Janelle loves tens. 44. That would be times 11. 48 would be 4 times 12. What's next, guys? Count it up. You can do it even though we don't know our 13s. How many of you said 52? Good job. If you said 52, kiss your brain. All right, what about 4 more? 56? Awesome job. What about 4 more? Did you say 60? 2 snaps for you. What about 4 more? Did I make any mistakes? Find them if I did. If I made any mistakes, find them. And tell me, let me make sure that you can tell that that is a 4 right there. Okay. All right, now, that is a way to do it, and it's a good way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it. Math is one of those things that we can find some other ways, right, to figure things out. All right, so let's think about that again. Let's put our problem going horizontally this time, okay? And let's think about what we know about the distributive property, okay? So I mentioned earlier that I knew that once I got to 8, that I could do exactly the same number underneath it. And I said that I knew that because of my doubles facts, right? All those doubles facts that we're supposed to know by the end of first grade, right? Well, that means that I could turn that 16 into 8 and 8, right? So then it's just a matter of grouping it the right way in order to solve it. So we take our parentheses, we take one of those 8s times 4. And don't forget your little plus sign because we're going to add it to the next group. We take our other 8 times 4, okay? And what do we get? All right, well, some of you are going to need to stop and do an array. Some of you have already memorized them. So let's just go with the ones that have already got their facts memorized. And what is 8 times 4? Did I already do a visual that could help me figure that out? I did, because that was number 8, right? So what is 8 times 4? Remember, you can go back and use any of your other work to help you. All right, so that's 32. If you had already said that, kiss your brain. Plus 32. Okay, some of us can go ahead and add it like that. We could do mental math because there's no regrouping here. So we could take our 1s and put them in the 1s place. And we could take our 10s and put them in the 10s place. All right, if you don't feel comfortable with doing that type of mental math, you can always do a side note and set it up as a vertical problem instead. Make sure that you've lined up your 1s with your 1s and your 10s with your 10s. Then 2 and 2 is an easy one for all of us. Hey, it's another double. I like all these doubles. Maybe doubles are lucky. Maybe doubles are lucky like Leprechaun gold. All right, 3 and 3 is 6. So there you go, 64. And does that match what we found with our model? And it does match with our model. All right, so I'm going to take that 64. Well, that's how many leaves we have, so we could actually go back and answer this, right? And how would we answer it? Hopefully we're going to answer it in the form of a sentence, right? So there are, how many? 64 leaves. You could say in all, or you could say all together. I think I'm going to do in all and put my period at the end of that sentence. So now I've answered it in the form of a complete sentence. All right, so let's look at this. Let's do one more little thing with this number and then I'll sign off and you guys can come up with some other groups of, as a matter of fact, maybe I'll give you one to work on for tomorrow before I sign off today. And I can also type it into Remind for those that are not able to access YouTube right now. But let's look at the number 64. And now let's round it to the nearest 10. And let's round it to the nearest 100. Let's keep those rounding skills sharpened while we're at it today, right? All right, so starting with 10s, put a dot under your 10s place, okay? And Now let's think about that 4. What is that 4 going to have us do? Okay, some of you are already calling it out. I can almost hear you. Some of you are thinking, oh, what was it Miss Janot is always telling us? I'm always telling you that 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 will round the number down, okay? Which means that 10's number would stay the same and anything following it would be a 0. 5, which is the middle number right in the middle of 0 and 10, 6, 7, 8, and 9 will round the number up. Okay, so come back down here again. What will 4 do? 4 is going to round it down. So that 10's number stays a 6. Anything after that becomes a 0. Another way to think about that is if I'm looking at the number 64, what 2 10s is it between? All right, so if I went backwards on the number line, the next thing that I would find that has a 0 in the ones place would be 60, right? And if I went this way on the number line, the next number that I found with a 0 in the tens place would be 70. And we decided the 4 would round it down to 60. Okay, all right, let's look at it again, except this time we're going to be thinking about the number 64 in terms of hundreds. All right, so, interesting. Do we have anything right there in the hundreds place? We don't. We don't have anything right there in the hundreds place. We could just put in a little imaginary 0 there if we needed to as a placeholder since there isn't anything sitting in the hundreds place. So what does that tell us about this number? Well, that means that if I am looking to round it to the nearest 100, it is going to be between 0, since there isn't anything in the hundreds place, and what would the next 100 be? Well, the next 100 would be the very first 100 of all, 100, right? So let's think about where this one will round. We still have to put a dot underneath the hundreds place, even though the hundreds place is kind of a ghost. It's not really there. We had to kind of put in a placeholder for it, right? But if we're rounding to the hundreds place, we have to start with the hundreds place. Then let's look at what is right next door. The 6 is next door. What did we learn about rounding if we're dealing with the number 6? What's that 6 going to do? Is it going to round it down to 0, or is it going to round it up to 100? And I can hear so many of you already saying it is going to round us up to 100. So 64 rounded to the nearest 100 is 100. All right, guys. All right, a couple of things that I wanted to mention, just because if you are like me, you're sitting there thinking, well, I am stuck on what Miss Janot said in the story yesterday about even the wind stopped to listen. When old Pat was playing the harp, even the wind stopped to listen. Okay, so let me put my math down and put on my ELA hat for just a second. When I give a person's trait to something that is not a person, the type of figurative language that is has the word person in it, P-E-R-S-O-N, person, except it's not pronounced person within the word, it is pronounced person. And the rest of that word is ication. Personification. All right, personification is the type of figurative language that was. And so if any of you guys were stuck on that one that I said to you in the middle of the story, I didn't want to leave you hanging on that. All right, let's come back and I'm going to give you a math problem to work on for tomorrow. We'll start with just answering the math problem tomorrow, and then I'll do another read aloud story. You got 3 yesterday, so I think you're okay if you want to go back and just re-listen to some of those for right now, but I will give get you another story ready for tomorrow. Let's do a math problem, and you can have it ready to talk about with me, even though you can't really talk to me, but that's okay. You can type to me, and your parents definitely know how to send me sorry about that, remind messages. All right, so one more problem for you guys. What if we were back here and instead of the 3-leaf clovers, we were dealing with, instead of the 4-leaf clovers, we were dealing with the 3-leaf clovers, okay? So let's take that same problem. There are 16, but instead of the number word 4 this time, we're going to have the number word 3-leaf clovers. And again, those would be for the readers to find. How many leaves would that be? And I like in all today. I'm going to put that one in this problem instead. How many leaves are there in all? And I asked a question, so I'm going to end that with a question mark. All right, so we'll start with this tomorrow, guys, okay? All right, I've enjoyed getting to do a little teaching to my 3J babies, and I miss you guys, and I can't wait to hear more about all the things that you are doing. But if you have not yet replied to me about any of the questions from yesterday, or if you still want to show me your trap for catching a leprechaun, I can't wait to see all those. Thank you for all the comments and all of the responses that I've gotten from you so far. And I will be doing shout outs every day for you guys that are giving me answers. And even if you're answering me on Remind and you can't actually see me on the YouTube videos, that's okay. One of these days when we get back to school, you can pull up those videos with me and I will show you where I mentioned you on a certain date. All right. Okay, great guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I hope to get on here and see you again tomorrow.